welcome to the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast, where two Southerners come to terms with their liberal snowflake tendencies. We're your hosts. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jason. And we're here with this week's episode of the Carolina Snowflakes Podcast. This week, I want you to imagine that we have a budget for this show.
Ooh, money.
Yeah, and if we did, right now, I would spend whatever budget we had to get the rights to play Lou Reed's Satellite of Love in the background, because I love that song, and it would be perfect intro for this week's episode, because this week's episode is called Satellite of Love, because it's going to be about love, and it's going to be about affection and Valentine's Day, and I'll work satellites in there somewhere if I can. I just really like the song. Yeah. And if I had a budget, that's what it would go here.
Yeah, so let's just all imagine that that's what's playing right now.
Yeah, it would be perfect.
It would be great.
Yeah. So this episode's coming out on Valentine's Day. Today is Valentine's Day if you were listening to this when it comes out. So
Woohoo!
I want to say happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I love you all. Anyone who's listening. Even if this isn't Valentine's Day, I love you. But I say it because it's Valentine's Day and I want the love to be spread. I'm not the biggest fan of Valentine's Day. It's not my favorite holiday, but I'm okay with it. I like love and stuff. What about you? I'm
into it.
You're into it?
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Did you make little cardboard Valentines when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. And you had to give them, one to each of your classmates.
Yeah, you made a little box for them to put your Valentines in.
And I had like a crush in third grade. So I gave him like the bigger box of candy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, from your secret admirer.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Did he ever find out who it was?
Yeah, somebody told.
Oh.
It's always embarrassing.
Was it?
Yeah.
He wasn't your little boyfriend after that?
No. But he kept the candy.
He kept the candy?
Yeah.
Well, if I know anything about little kids, they'll take free candy.
Yeah, it's true.
They love candy. I mean, that's one of the other things about Valentine's Day. At least it got me into it as a child because you're like a crackhead for candy.
Oh my God, it's nothing but sugar.
So... Yeah. When I was a kid, I liked that part of Valentine's Day.
Yes, the candy was always the best part. I think as you get older, though, some people like to refer to it as Singles Awareness Day.
Yeah.
Because, it's all hyped about love and relationships and being partnered off. And not everybody's got a partner.
Or not everybody even wants to do that. But, yeah. I mean... In that sense, it does suck, but at least it's only one day. It's not like a long thing. It's not like one of those. It's not like Christmas where it takes the whole fucking month.
That's a good point. Or come on now, Christmas lasts like 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. At least with Valentine's Day, it's just mostly a day.
Mostly.
And if you're single, you just can't you can't go to a restaurant that day. It's going to be packed. It's going
to be booked, and probably should avoid social media too, because people are going to be gushing about their partners and.
But I do like the color scheme. I like the reds and pinks color scheme that you get.
Oh, yeah. Pink's my favorite color, so yes.
Yeah, as a kid, I was always kind of I like the color scheme that happens around Valentine's Day.
The only thing that bothers me, but I guess that's just a holiday thing, is just everything's so expensive.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
the little teddy bears and even the roses. Like everything, the prices are jacked up.
Mm-hmm. It was just a way for capitalism to
Love
make more
is
money.
Expensive.
Yeah, it is. Love is a battlefield, you might
It really
say.
is, yes.
But I mean, I know when I think about Valentine's Day, I also think about Cupid for some reason, because we get lots of little Cupid baby dolls and where Valentine's Day comes from.
Right, and the Cupid's arrow.
Cupid's arrow. Yeah, I used to draw the little arrow with the heart through it all the time, or the heart with the arrow through it all the time. When I was being an emo kid, I would draw a little
When you
heart
were an emo kid?
and put a little arrow through it. It was just a symbol I like to draw.
I drew it a lot too, actually.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to draw. And so I thought maybe it'd be good for this week for us to get into where all that came from. What is the deal with Cupid? Is he a stupid fucking baby? or what is Cupid?
Okay.
So I thought we might do that this week. What do you think?
I'm in.
All right. So I did a little bit of research into Cupid because I wanted to answer, really there was 2 questions I was trying to answer. And that is there's this strong, muscular, Cupid guy. And then there's little baby, fat little baby.
Little baby, fat little baby.
Yeah, with a little bow and arrow that looks tiny and it wouldn't hurt. Uh-huh. And why are there 2 different ones? And are those both of those like historical things? Like, really? I wanted to know the answer to that, and I kind of knew, but not really. So I did a little bit of research into this. So I wanted to talk about Cupid because I find it to be very interesting.
Okay.
Especially because this is Valentine's Day. So like in the oldest mythology is Greek mythology. We're talking like 700 BC-ish. He was named Eros, Eros.
Okay.
Eros was his name. And Eros was the word for desire, the Greek word for desire. So he was like the god of desire. He was a primeval god. And that meant like he was there at the beginning of the creation of everything. So Cupid was one of the forces that holds the whole universe together.
Oh, so Cupid was the god?
Yes.
Eros. Oh.
Yes.
But did he look like that?
No, that's what I was gonna say. He didn't look like that at all.
Huh.
He was a powerful god. He was actually one of the fundamental gods of the whole world. He got made the same day as the underworld and the earth.
So kind of a big deal.
Yeah, he's very central to human existence.
Okay.
So like he was a pretty powerful, big, important god. He was also the god, like he was the god of passion, desire, fertility. He wasn't really the god of love. He was more like a god of like the base connection of humankind and human connection to the earth. So he was always kind of a trickster. He was spontaneous and capricious like nature is. In fact, there's an interesting quote I found. This guy, Richard Martin, he's a classics professor at Stanford. He said in the Greek literary sources we have, he's depicted as unconquerable. So whatever he wants to happen, happens. He causes disaster. So we have this god that's like, he's very strong and powerful and this like ultimate force of the world connected to love, which I think is really interesting.
He's intense.
Yeah, he is. He's very intense. And even though he was a trickster and kind of devious, people still wanted to be shot with Cupid's arrow. They still wanted Eros to fill them with like mad love because it was such a powerful, raw, connective force. And which I think is really interesting because that's slightly different than the Cupid we have in our minds now.
Yeah, but it's still kind of similar in a way.
Mm-hmm.
We all love, when we're in love, it's very intense.
Yes, it is. It's intense and it's overwhelming and it feels like one of the strongest things that there could ever be.
It's very human.
Mm-hmm. So at this time, he was sort of depicted as like a young, strong guy, even like late teens. He has a golden wings and a bow and arrow that were given to him by Zeus. He wore armor a lot because there was like this connection between love and war and this connection between like...
Pat Benatar knew.
Yeah, and this connection between like love being unconquerable, like an army, like an unconquerable force.
Okay.
So it was symbolic. Also at this time, like he was known as like being the son of Aphrodite. And there were different myths around who his dad was. So sometimes his dad would be Ares or Mars, the god of war. And so the armor was a connection to that. Sometimes his dad would be Zeus, and the wings would be a connection to that. And his mom was Aphrodite. Sometimes he didn't have a dad. He was just a companion to her. So there are different representations, but they're all sort of this like strong, powerful, sort of macho, overwhelming force of love. But once the Romans got a hold of it, things start to change a little bit because the Romans were a little bit more patriarchal. So once we get to like around 200 BC and a little bit after that, you get into the Roman times when they weren't as lenient as the Greeks about things. They were more strict, I think.
Yes.
And so Cupid becomes like the god of love in all of its forms. He's sometimes called Cupid or Amor, which is a Latin word for love. Mm-hmm. But it's actually Latin for love is Amor, and Cupid is Latin for desire. So love and desire, it's sort of mixed together. The Romans made him into a little baby because of the connection with Aphrodite, the like little baby companion of her. And it's interesting. He supposedly had a brother named Anti-Eros, who was the god of requited love. And him and Cupid fought. Like Cupid was like, fuck you. Requited love is like, it's not even the same feeling. It's like a whole other thing. He was dealing with like that deep, hardcore love, which I find interesting. And the Greeks and Romans were certainly aware of the different kinds of love, which I think is really cool because I feel that way today, don't you?
Yes.
Like there are many different kinds of love, and they had like different gods and different ways to represent each kind, which I think is pretty cool. But he lost all of his sexual charisma at this point. He became a little infantile baby. And this was because of possibly because of the patriarchal culture that had become strong in Greece and Rome at the time. So like they were trying to repress female sexuality by infantilizing Cupid. There were many stories where Cupid did Aphrodite's bidding, and the Romans didn't like the idea of a big, powerful, strong man doing the bidding of a woman. So there's a lot of patriarchy sort of happening at this time.
And a dash of misogyny.
That caused him to go from a badass to a little itty bitty stupid fucking baby.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of gathered when I did this research. Like, holy shit, okay, so it's really the patriarchy.
They downgraded him a little. Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really pretty cool. They had a festival. So like they would eventually get to the point, like once you get to AD, like 100 and 200 AD, they had these festivals that they called the Erotania, which was like a big orgy to celebrate the Cupids. There's now multiple Cupids. They have an orgy to celebrate them.
How did they get to more than one Cupid?
They just, because they're Rome, and they just decided like there were a bunch of these little fucking babies running around.
They were extra.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now they are like, we're going to have this big orgy, and we're going to do fucked up Roman stuff.
They did a lot of fucked up things.
And praise Cupid and like reflect the values they saw in Cupid. And they also had like a lot of tournaments and wrestling contests and hunting things, because he was also considered to be the god of male love between males.
Okay.
And that even did go sexual. So like, you know how the Romans were. There was a thing with, he was kind of the god of homosexual sex a little bit for a while there towards the end.
For a minute or two.
Yeah, he was like the gay god.
Okay.
And the Romans just sort of like were like, yeah, he's the god of like when dudes love each other and sometimes they bang. And that's cool. He's the god of that.
And so then they wrestled.
Yeah, and then they wrestled. They would
to celebrate.
Yeah, to celebrate our love of this guy, which I thought was
those Romans.
Oh yeah,
am I right?
They did things a little different.
Very different.
Yeah, and so that's the sort of like that answers those two questions I had like at the beginning of like what happened to him? Why did he become this weird little baby thing?
Right, because if you look up Cupid, you can see two different visual representations. One being stupid fucking baby, and other being kind of this strong young man.
Yeah,
with wings.
Yeah, and it sort of fits the idea I had in my head of the Greeks doing things that kind of made sense. And the Romans making them weird. And
the Romans being like, excess.
Yeah.
Extra.
Yeah.
Let's throw an orgy in here.
Because the Greeks were like, love seems to be one of the most important things in the world. And so it's very powerful. And they were like, yeah, but that gives women way too much power. So
we can't have that.
We can't have that. We're going to switch it up.
Right.
It seems like that's what happened, which I found really interesting. I didn't know that, but it all sort of makes sense.
Okay.
So in some ways, Cupid's story is a story of patriarchy.
Weird.
Didn't see that coming, did you?
No.
There's one more connection with Cupid that I wanted to talk about because I thought this was really a cool story. So, you know, we use the word narcissism all the time, and that comes from narcissism and Narcissus in mythology. And you kind of know the story around Narcissus, but yes. I found the actual full, like, fleshed out story of that, and I think Cupid's heavily involved with it, and I thought it would be pretty interesting to tell that story.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
The story kind of goes that I'm going to call him Eros because it's the Greek story, so Narcissus and Eros, where basically Eros is mad at Narcissus for his beauty, because Narcissus, like, has all this beauty, and everyone falls in love with him, and he abuses it. Like, there's a story where a guy comes to his house, and Narcissus gives him a sword, and the dude just falls on the sword and kills himself because he thinks that's what Narcissus wants him to do.
And he was so in love, or
that he would just do whatever Narcissus said. And so Eros didn't like this because he was like, you got this beauty that makes everyone love you, and you abuse it. And so one day Narcissus was talking to people, and he was like, I'm so badass that like Cupid's arrow wouldn't even hurt me. Like Eros could shoot me with his arrow.
He could shoot me all day long and I won't feel a thing.
Because he's so full of himself, which is what Narcissus do. And so Eros is like pissed, and he's like, all right, I'm going to get back at him. And he decides he's going to come up with a plan involving Echo. Now, Echo was a nymph who had her voice taken away from her for having an affair with Zeus. And Athena took away her voice so that she could only repeat what was said to her. And so Eros comes up with this plan. I'm going to use Echo. So one day when Echo is walking down the path and Narcissus is walking down a forest path and they're going to pass each other, Eros shoots Echo with the arrow. So she falls in love with Narcissus hard, even past his beauty, even past that. She falls madly in love with him. So she starts to swoon over him, but she can't say anything because she's Echo. And he looks at her and he kind of scoffs and he says, I would die before I would give you a chance at me. And being Echo, all she could say back is, I would give you a chance at me. In which he laughs and just leaves her there on the road. And she's just there, heartbroken, feeling terrible. And he starts continuing down the trail, and he starts to hear this voice. This voice, it's the best voice he's ever heard. He's in love with this voice. He has to follow it. It's the best voice he's ever heard. It's his own voice. And the reason he can hear it is because Echo is echoing his thoughts and making him hear his own voice, which to him is the best thing he's ever heard.
Right.
And so he starts following his voice, and it leads him to the water. And when he gets near the water, Eros shoots him with another arrow. Another one that he has. He shoots him with another arrow. Narcissus looks into the water and immediately falls so in love with his own reflection that he can't move because he's now gotten Cupid's arrow in him and seen his own reflection. And the combination of those things is just too much. And so he just sits there on the shore until he wastes away and dies and turns into a big, white, beautiful flower that now grows on the shores of rivers there, which I thought is an interesting story, and I thought it was pretty cool because it involves Cupid. I knew the outline of the Narcissus story.
Yeah, I knew it had to do with him seeing his reflection in water, but I didn't realize
the whole series of
Cupid
events.
shooting him to get back at him.
For being a dick and saying that his arrows wouldn't work on him. So that's an older story. It's a more Greek story. It's a story that gives you more of Eros being like masculine and not taking any shit. Not a stupid little baby.
Right.
Which I think I prefer that Cupid. Which one do you prefer?
Well, I kind of like the little stupid baby one because that character is kind of portrayed as being a little more mischievous.
Yeah.
Flying around and you least expect it.
Yeah.
And it shoots you with the air. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It definitely captures the capriciousness of love. But I think the masculine, like unconquerable Cupid is like a lot more, in my experience, a lot more of a real reflection of how love is. And it's just like this unstoppable force that is way more powerful than a lot of other things that exist. I like that. I think they're both true. But I think I like that interpretation because it seems like in my life, that's the way love has been. It's like this more all-powerful thing. I think it's great. I think it's the most important thing. I think it is what connects us all, you know?
Yes. So you gave us the rundown on the different Cupids.
Yes, the evolution of Cupid.
The mythology and how Cupid was involved with Narcissus.
Well, and at one point he was kind of like a gay baby.
Kind of a gay baby.
Yeah.
Is that a gay-bee?
Yeah, a gay-bee.
I'm gonna share a little bit about Valentine's Day itself.
Oh, yeah.
And why we celebrate it on February 14th. And where that came from.
I don't actually know any of that, so I'm very interested to learn.
Well, Valentine's Day actually comes from Saint Valentine, who was a 3rd century Roman saint who was martyred on February 14th, 269 AD. They were super into martyrdom.
Yeah, oh yeah, back
martyring
then.
And the church.
Yeah. If you died for something, they were pretty stoked.
They were
about
totally going to make you a saint.
Yeah.
So they did. He is actually the patron saint of courtly love, as well as epilepsy and beekeepers.
Beekeepers.
Kind of makes me wonder. So, like, listen, hear me out. When they're going down the list of like things, nouns, do they just sort of shove some of them into like other saint?
They have to, because those two things don't seem to go together. I don't think you could have an epileptic beekeeper because he'd be throwing the bees everywhere.
He'd be having fits.
He would just have a seizure while he's pulling out the little bees thing, and then bees would fly everywhere and sting him.
Also, what does that have to do with courtly love?
I mean, with the exception of the movie My Girl, which is about love, and then Macaulay Culkin dies from bees.
That's it. You're right.
That's the only connection I can see. But man, that's some far sight into the future.
Yeah, weird though. Like,
yeah.
Because I mean, if the saint ever, if you were sainted after you were dead, and then like let's say you managed to come back to life, and somebody's like, "Hey man, you got sainted. You're the patron saint of courtly love," and you're like, "Oh, nice. Oh yeah, and epilepsy and beekeeping."
Well, I kind of love is sweet and honey is sweet, so maybe there's a connection there. So I get the beekeeper one. The epilepsy one's strange, but see, I've made this point on the show many a times. I think back then they kind of worshipped people that had what we now consider to be brain disorders or
neurological
disorders. What we now call neurological disorders. I think back then they just called being close to God and being awesome.
You're right. For example, Saint Clare, she's the patron saint of television, but not because they had televisions back in olden day Rome, but because she used to hallucinate and have visions in her room. What?
Which is like watching
And they
TV.
thought that was great.
Yeah, they thought it was great. So I think maybe there's a sort of connection there. They gave neurological disorders, what we now term neurological disorders, to saints as good.
Yeah, that was definitely...
I've made that point before.
Yes, yeah. So relics of Saint Valentine, including his skeletal remains, are on display in various churches around Rome and one church in Ireland.
Those are some old bones.
Yeah, they actually have his skull with a crown of flowers on display
nice.
in one of the churches
That's
in
crazy.
Rome that you can go see. And many people go on Valentine's Day
to see the skull.
It's kind of like a Mecca trip.
Yeah,
to hopefully be blessed with the presence of Saint Valentine to find love.
That's pretty cool. Or bees or epilepsy.
Or epilepsy. Like whatever floats your boat. So the Feast of Saint Valentine's, also known as Saint Valentine's Day, was established by Pope Gelasius I in 469 AD to be celebrated on February 14th in honor of Saint Valentine. Now, there's some speculation among historians that Pope Gelasius designated Valentine's Day in order to replace the ancient Roman festival Lupercalia, which, back to your point on Romans
and their weirdness
and their bizarre behavior. So this was a celebration of fertility, and it was dedicated to the Roman gods of agriculture and faunas, and also to Romulus and Remus. The festival of Lupercalia was less courtly in nature, and it involved a ritual where an order of Roman priests would strip naked and run through the streets, slapping women with the blood-soaked hides of sacrificed animals and fish, which they believed promoted fertility.
Here you go.
Yeah. So that was like a thing.
Wow. So first of all, they're presuming that you want to be more fertile. And second of all, they think the way to do it is by hitting you with the bloodied carcass of fish and other animals.
Yes.
While they were naked.
Yes.
See, yeah, they were weird.
So the Pope was like,
I don't know if I like this.
He was, well, this was the church and Catholicism and like kind of the starting of that.
Right.
So they wanted to have more order and move away from kind of the more crazy ancient Roman mythology where they had multiple gods.
And things were weird.
Yeah, so there's some historians who think that perhaps the reason why he chose to make Saint Valentine's Day a day, it was to sort of push that.
To get rid of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with that.
I mean, I wouldn't want to get hit in the face with a fish.
Honestly, if on Valentine's Day I was just walking down Main Street minding my own business and some naked man runs up and slaps me with a fish. Yeah, no,
that's worse. I would rather the other one that we talked about, the other festival that's just like a big orgy and wrestling matches and tournaments and stuff.
I'd rather be there too.
At least that's all consensual.
Not this. And that somehow makes you fertile.
Yeah, weird.
I don't know. So there you go. That's the history of Valentine's Day.
Huh.
From Saint Valentine.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go see Saint Valentine one day, see that skull and just be like,
you can see it. It's on display.
What's up, dude?
Yeah.
Well, Wow, that's bizarre.
Since we're doing a whole episode about love and satellite of love.
Satellite of love, yes.
Have we circled around?
Yeah, we've made it all the way around.
I think so. So to wind down this week's episode of love, I thought it might be fun to answer a few questions about love and relationships.
I think that would be just dandy.
There's no right or wrong answer here. These are just opinions.
Just opinions.
And your thoughts.
Okay.
You ready?
I probably have thoughts.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. All right, question number 1. How do you define love?
I think it goes back to the first Cupid. I define love as one of the most strong things in the world, but also one of the scariest things in the world because it makes you vulnerable and there's nothing you can do about it. It's unpreventable. And I think there are a bunch of different kinds of love. And I think what you're asking for about the definition of love is a romantic love.
No, it's open. This is open
Okay.
for interpretation.
Well, I think when it's romantic love, it's scary and it makes you vulnerable. But I think when it's love of your family or an animal that's unconditional, then it's a lot more soft and less scary. So to me, that would be how I would do it. I would kind of be, there's like the scary love and then there's unconditional, warm, squishy love.
That's a good point. That's a really good point of how love in a partnership or a relationship isn't unconditional.
Right. That's why it's scary.
We like to say it is, and I guess we hope that it is.
Yeah.
And if it's a good relationship, you strive for it to be unconditional. But unlike your family or your mom who has to love you, like, it's not necessarily so much.
Yeah.
So there is sort of that fear of being hurt.
Yeah. But I think if you have little kids or if you have dogs or cats, the kind of love that you have for the cat and that it appears to have for you seems to be, as long as you're not horrible, unconditional.
Oh, that's true.
And that makes it like way less scary. It's still just as powerful though. I just think it's less threatening. It becomes threatening when has the possibility of being unrequited.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right. Question number 2. Do you consider yourself to be a romantic person?
Yes. I wish that I wasn't. My brain is not, but my brain isn't in charge. So I'm a romantic person because my heart says that I have to be. But my brain wants to break free of the chains of emotion and be able to think objectively, but it is but a mere peasant
To your feelings.
to my feelings. So that'd be my answer. What about you?
I think you're definitely more romantic than I am.
Yeah.
I think just by nature. I'm more, although I have an appreciation for the whimsy and the fantasy, I am probably a little more pragmatic. I'm a little more practical.
Yeah.
But I'm romantic, but maybe not quite so much as you.
Yeah, I idolize things, and I certainly have moral opinions about the world that are very emotionally driven.
Yeah. All right, question number 3. Do you believe in love at first sight?
Not really. I believe in connections. I definitely believe that you could, at first sight, know there's the potential for love. But I don't believe that you just automatically fall in love with first sight. But I believe there's totally, like, you can look at a group of 100 people and be attracted to one person and know you could either have a love or a friendship relationship with that person just by sort of looking at them. I think there is some truth to there. There's some like instinct that happens there, but I don't think it's falling in love. I think it's the potential. You can see the potential for love in somebody.
I kind of agree with you. For me, love takes time. I think love at first sight is really more just attraction at first sight.
Yeah, you can have lust at first sight for sure.
But not necessarily love, at least the way that I kind of define it.
But I certainly believe you can see a bunch of people and just see somebody and look somebody in the eyes and just know, like, we could either
there's a potential
be
here
friends,
for some kind of connection.
Yeah. That could be love. Who knows?
All right, question number 4. Do you think that people are made for each other?
Not really. I don't think people are made, so not really.
So like,
it's all random chance.
So things like soulmates or
I don't really get no.
So do you think then that like there's multiple people out in the world that you could have
Yes.
a similar connection to.
Yes, I believe that. And my evidence of that is that the world has so many billion people in it, and you're only going to meet a tiny fraction. And a lot of people seem to find love. So it seems to me statistically that yes, if I met everyone in the world, I could meet somebody that I loved, and then they could die, and then I could meet everybody in the world again and meet somebody that I loved again.
I agree.
Yeah.
My thinking is a little bit different, but we end up basically at the same point, which is I don't think that people are inherently made for each other.
Yeah, I don't think people are made for anything. I mean, we're just sperm and egg.
Yeah, I think what happens is if it's a good pairing, if it's a solid relationship and one where they work together, a couple kind of can work with each other.
Yes.
To where it almost seems like they're made for each other.
Mm-hmm. But it's always work. I don't think anybody's just all of a sudden perfect.
Yeah, like you show up and you're like, oh, we don't have to do anything and we're great.
A lot of times relationships where people think that's what's happening, it's just parasitic.
Yeah, leechy.
Yeah.
Leechy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, question number 5. What causes people to fall out of love?
Drugs. Drugs is a big one. I think a lot of people have loved someone and then drugs have changed who that person is to the point where they don't love them anymore.
But is that drugs or is that kind of going deeper into...
Well, if you want to go deeper, there's a causal reason for the drug use. But I just think that I've seen drugs change people enough to where people could fall out of love with them. Like that's something that can change you enough where I think someone could fall out of love with you.
I would say it's more about loss of respect.
Yeah.
From either the person you're with or you towards them.
Yeah, like if they're watching too much Fox News.
Yeah, you come home one day.
Yeah, and they're just zonking
and it's
Tucker
like,
Carlson, and you're just like, I don't love you anymore.
And it goes from being one day to now it's every evening. They're flipping on to Fox News. And
you're like, I just don't love you anymore.
I can't respect that.
It's pretty much the same as drug use, if you ask me.
Yeah, I just think that like drug use itself is not necessarily the reason so much as what's causing it or whatever issues are at play. But I do think, at least from my opinion, is it's more about like losing some kind of respect you had for your partner. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's other reasons you could fall out of love. That was an example of one reason you could fall out of love.
And one that you've seen personally.
That I've seen happen, where somebody has changed so much because of their drug use that I understood why their partner didn't love them anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, they probably got hurt a lot. Makes sense. Next question. How do you feel when other people find your partner attractive?
I would love to say that I have no jealousy, but I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of jealousy because it's fear of rejection. So there's always a little bit of it's like, well, if these people find her attractive and then maybe she would take them over me.
Right. You start comparing yourself to them.
I would love to say that I was secure enough to never have that feeling, but that would be lying. But I don't have it as strong as a lot. I've seen people that get real sensitive about
that lose their minds
because they're very, very paranoid and they have a very big fear of abandonment. I don't really have that.
No.
So I have those feelings, but it's not something that I don't have control over. It's not something that drives me crazy. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm actually very fortunate because most people, you're my partner, and most people who find you attractive are like teenage girls.
Oh, yeah.
So all I really have to do is just run over them with my car.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a big deal.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Well, I get told that I look like Keanu Reeves a lot.
All the time.
Whoever is really attracted to Keanu Reeves would probably be attracted to me.
Oh, yeah.
And
I have to deal with that too.
Yeah. I wish I was Keanu Reeves. I really do. I would have way more money, and we would have really had Satellite of Love.
You could have had we could have had like 5 different songs.
Yeah, I had all the different covers of Lou Reed's Satellite of Love.
Oh yeah, all the Eurythmics covered it.
David Bowie and him did it.
Bowie did a duet with
That's a really great song. Look it up. You'll thank me later.
We could link it. We could link the YouTube video.
You'll thank me.
All right, next question. What is the most important thing in a relationship?
The most important thing in a relationship is communication, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's all built on whether or not you can communicate with the other person. And when miscommunications happen, how you handle them, I think is really, really important. So I think the most important thing is things revolving around whether or not you can express to each other how you feel.
I agree. I think communicating is important, and also communicating about communicating.
Yeah.
That's also really important, to set kind of boundaries. Because if you're in a relationship, you're inevitably going to argue at some point, or at least disagree, even if you're not like, fighting.
Don't do it on text.
Yeah. The best thing to do is to have a conversation ahead of time when you're not arguing and basically set boundaries of we're not gonna we're not gonna argue or disagree through text.
Yes.
That's a good example. Another one would be like, please don't call me crazy.
Yeah.
If we're arguing.
Right.
That hurts me at the core.
Exactly. And I think you're right. I think discussing those things and having those boundaries about communication. I know for us, I said, if there's a misunderstanding that involves text, like call me and let's talk to each other.
Or wait till we're in person.
It's perhaps the difference between reading, I want to help your Uncle Jack, off a horse,
right,
and reading, I want to help your Uncle Jack off a horse.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't want to get into a fight over that because it's ridiculous.
I'm like, what? Leave my uncle out of this.
Yeah. So I think that's really important. If somebody says something upsetting to you on text, don't freak out until you understand, because it is really possible to screw things up through like really simple errors. And then I think it's important to acknowledge when miscommunications are happening and say like, I know I said this, but that is not what I meant. And I know you heard that and that you thought that's what I meant. And I'm so sorry because I stick my foot in my mouth a lot. I'm one of those people who does.
Yeah. That's it. I was going to say that too. I think in addition to communicating about communicating, I'd also add, don't be afraid to apologize.
Yeah.
Like an apology can get you very far in keeping a relationship strong.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It really is. It's worth it. And I think when you are in a relationship and it's a good relationship, it becomes its own thing. It's separate from you. It's like the pairing is bigger than the sum of its parts. You end up making something bigger that's just you plus me. You end up making something that's us. Right. And that's a bigger thing.
And that goes back to respect as well. That's another key, I think, part of relationships is actually having mutual respect. All right. Last question. If you woke up tomorrow morning as the opposite gender or sex, what are the first 3 things you would do?
I can't help but say, learn to drive, which is...
Oh, well, this relationship may be over, ladies and gentlemen.
I couldn't help myself. That was a joke. I understand it was sexist. I apologize. Oh, it just popped in my head and I could not say it.
Sometimes you can't help. You'll apologize for that later. The first thing, learn to drive.
I think... what was the question? If I was the other gender and I woke up, what would I do?
What are the first 3 things you would do?
I think there would only be one thing I would do, and it would be stare at myself in the mirror naked.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think I would do much past that.
I actually kind of am the same, except instead of staring at myself in the mirror naked, I would just go pee standing up.
Yeah, just go piss all
on
over
everything.
Yeah, I would.
I'd go outside.
I might try to get free shit from people if I was pretty enough.
Oh, if you were pretty enough. Wow, you have some negative opinions on what women do. There's so much coming out right now.
Yeah, this was terrible. I should have. We're gonna edit this last one out,
so
right?
You're saying women can't drive, and you're saying that they use their feminine wiles to get free things. Wow.
No, I said that's what I would do. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. I said I'd pee on everything.
Yeah. Well, we actually do that, though.
I know.
No,
I
don't know any men that have any shame about the fact that we piss on everything.
I really kind of want to do that.
Yeah,
I want to try it.
It's fun. I know I had mentioned that I have a habit of putting my foot in my mouth, and I've managed to ledge it firmly in there here. So I think this is probably the best time to end the episode before I can make myself look any worse.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear episodes where I maybe don't make myself look like such a sexist, you can find them on our website,
carolinasnowflakes.com.
And if you want to talk to other people about love, and I don't know, who knows, maybe find love, you can find it on Facebook on our Facebook.
Facebook.com/Carolina Snowflakes.
And you know I love you and I love our audience. And if anybody out there loves me too and wants to say so in an email, you can always send us an email.
carolinasnowflakes@gmail.com.
gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. Bye.